Hello, welcome. How's it going? Sound and everything? Can you hear me? Welcome to everyone who's joining this evening. Let's hang out a bit. I feel led to talk to you this evening about a few things, okay, Penny? Is that okay? Hey, Penny, how are you? Destiny Rose 420. It's been a minute. Welcome. Hello. It's so funny when you do that, Professor. When you teach, oh, timing, cooking dinner right now. Okay, sure. Let us know what you're cooking, Destiny Rose. It's so nice to see you. Hey, Juan, how you doing? You're going to need a drink for this one. Yeah, you are. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. I don't know. We'll see. I'll just give you, we'll see. Just going to go with the leading of the Spirit of God, right, Molly? It's testimony time. Testimony time. You're welcome, Molly. Thank you. Love and blessings. Yes, to the Chatmosphere. T. Witten, hello there. Welcome. And Christine. Oh, Mrs. Harris is here again. You know I love when the Philly Johns join the Chatmosphere. How you doing, Mrs. Harris? You made it again. Nice. Yeah. Really good to see you. IG, you're here. What's up, IG? Nice to see you. And Herschel Sanders. Okay, so everything's sounding good. Hey, Michelle, welcome. You're a Philly John also? Look at that. Lots of Philly. We're going to talk a little bit about Philly because my part of my testimony, it really has a lot of, can I say, roots in Philadelphia. Deeply rooted in Philadelphia. Hey, Tina. Welcome, Tina. Welcome, John and Seabreeze. Juan said he's going for his drink. I mean, I'm not gonna, I just don't know. I just don't know. It's on my heart to talk about some things with you. Sean, how you doing? Welcome, welcome. Yeah, so I want to give a testimony based on I was watching some content, and there's a great content creator. He goes by Choke No Joke. You may know him, but he was giving his his take on some issues, and it sparked some thought in me. And I wanted to share some things. And when it comes to mental health and wellness and living in a culture like we do, and a lot of revelations right now that are coming to me about the role of women in the decay of our social fabric. And it's not a popular thing to talk about. It's not good to air out the sorority, right? But this is the only way to heal and to have wellness, because we have literally, and I was just on Super Slice Live, and he talked about what's happening with Aretha Franklin's song, Natural Woman, okay? Natural Woman under attack right now from trans groups, international, somewhere in Norway. I'm sure coming to our shores. But the attack against women is ramping up. And this is biblical. I can't ignore these things. I have to keep talking. I have to voice what I am seeing right now, and the role that women are playing. And one of the things that Sly said was that we've We women have basically trained our replacement. Have you ever trained your replacement? Like at a job, you kind of feel like they're pulling one over on you, pulling the wool over your eyes, and here you are on the low training your own replacement. Like if that's not the most like disrespectful thing ever. Kenna, hello, Kenna. You are commenting. Yeah, I see the comments from Facebook. Look at that. I didn't see them in this chat before. So I have to update some things when it comes to StreamYard, everyone. I'm about to lose connection to the main page, my main YouTube page. So if I do, I'll keep you posted. I'll still do live streams, but they will be on Facebook and not my backup channel because I got a strike today on my backup channel. And I shared a video of a short of that Davos thing where Rebel News, they were talking to the CEO of Pfizer and they slapped it for medical misinformation. So they struck the backup channel. I can't like stream there. So just, a little housekeeping to let you know, but I'll still stream to Facebook. Okay. So in any way, we'll figure it out. That's the thing about this current world that we have awakened to. And, we had lots of warnings, lots of things that told us that we would be living in times like this, but we were slow to understand. And now we're in it. And I, again, want to share the revelations that I am seeing in terms of being a woman, a modern woman, if you want to say, and a part of a culture here in America that exports culture to the world and influences so much. And especially like, the melanated people, okay? I mean, we're not going to ignore the elephant in the room and who really creates the culture and what group really, makes it go viral. We have to take responsibility in these days. We can't hide or sugarcoat things. We're in a time where truth must be spoken in power. And we must take accountability for our role in the decay of this culture. Because I look at it as this is an issue of negligence, dereliction of duty. And to continue to be negligent and derelict when it comes to the moral fabric of this nation, it's tantamount to like self-destruction. Like it really is. It's unreal. Hey, Isabel, I saw your name. Nice to see you in here. Welcome. Yeah, so the title is A Dabbler's Testimony. And I want to talk about dabbling in spiritual issues. A lot of us in America were raised in a faith that is Judeo-Christian. A lot of us, those are our roots. We, a lot of our talents for the music come straight out of, as they say, the Black church. The Black church birthed music here in America. And all of this soulful stuff, neo soul, I mean, I think about Philadelphia. I think about the Black Lily movement. Black Lily. We had lots of movements. The Sound of Philadelphia. Teddy Pendergrass. Patti LaBelle. I can name off so many people. Philadelphia has given a sound and a frequency that is a part of the culture. And when I think about the Black Lily, for those that don't know, if you're a real Philadelphian, a Philly John, you know when I say Black Lily, that's the neo soul. Neo soul. This is Jill Scott. This is the Jazzy Fat Nasties. This is Jasmine Sullivan. This is Jaguar Wright. I can go on and on, right? And many of these voices, they started in the house of prayer. Spiritual. Call it soul music. And Philadelphia has a very interesting role in this nation. I don't have to tell you. I mean, just a cursory understanding of American history, you know that Philadelphia has a lot of firsts. First this, first that, first hospital. I actually worked at America's very first hospital. I did a nursing extern at Pennsylvania Hospital. This is the nation's first hospital. And a lot of firsts. So the people, I'm thinking about family, like generational curses. You've heard that if you grew up in church, you heard of generational curses. And you begin to think about your family and what is in your bloodline. How do you understand your bloodline? And can you face yourself when you look at your story, your family story? Do you want to sanitize it and make it, less whatever? Because they're not perfect stories. Now that we're understanding a bit more, we're doing deeper research, and we're understanding that our families aren't perfect. So our bloodlines have a lot of issues, our DNA. Now, I thought about my grandmother, my great-grandmother. I just want to show you a quick picture because I want to ask you if you've ever heard of this particular thing. I'll go to my Instagram, which if you're on Instagram, I'm on there as Jenny the John. So there you go with the Philly reference. So this here is my great-grandmother. And she was complex, I'll say. Very interesting woman. And very, I would say she was an alchemist. And she was really sweet to me. Really, really, really sweet. I called her Granny. And she was really strict with my father and his brothers. Like, she raised them because my father's mother died when he was 8. And my granny here, she was super strict. Like, she did not believe in formal education. She said, "You were an educated fool." And, my dad was this genius. And so she tried to, just control him so much. And she was overbearing. But, I heard all these stories about her. But when it came to me, she was super sweet. And I was around her. She baked beautiful, I mean, just amazing pound cakes, fresh ingredients. She went down to the Italian markets in Philly, and everything was always fresh, and she grew things. um but once she told me that she was born with a veil over her face. Have you ever heard of anyone born with a veil over their face? Because she was born with a veil. So let me know. I'll wait. Let me grab something to drink. Let me know if you've ever heard of anyone being born with a veil. I don't know. They use the term a veil over your face. That's what she said. And you've heard of it, Mrs. Harris? Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Because it's actually a thing. Just got a little water. So you've heard of it. Mrs. Harris has heard of this term, being born with a veil. Either they say a veil over your face or a veil. You've heard of it, T. Witten? T. Witten has heard of it. You haven't, Jamie. Penny says it's very rare and it's said to be extremely spiritual. Flower Girl, hey there, welcome. You said, yes, my grandmother, your godmother used to talk about her grandma having a veil as well. Really? Okay. Um, Donna, you've heard of it, but you don't understand it. Okay. So let me just tell you what it means if you were to look it up. Okay. So okay, I have a little article just to explain it. What it means to be born with a veil, all about this rare and lucky birth wonder. Experts break down this incredible childbirth phenomenon that some say is a symbol of good fortune. They're called in-call births or veiled births, as they're also referred to, are essentially medical anomalies, estimatedly occurring in less than 1 out of 80,000 live births. It's true when parents to be are told nothing can prepare you for birth, but that goes double when babies are born with a veil. An in-call birth is an incredibly rare event where the baby is born encased in their amniotic sac. So it's rare, as you can see. Okay, let's see. Given its scarcity, a veiled birth also renders it incredibly special, even for experienced professionals. I've witnessed 2 births in call throughout my doula career, says Jennifer Mayer, and they are quite magical. So, let's see. So you pretty much know what the medical, explanation would be for it. So I was just, like I said, looking into bloodline issues, and just being real with things. And for my great grandmother to have had this rare birth, and then to know like she wasn't formally educated, but she knew how to do things like agriculture. And she, in her basement of her home in West Philly, I was not allowed to go down into her basement when I was visiting. So her basement was off limits. Now, my other grandmother, my mother's mother, I could go in her basement. It was spooky. She also lived in West Philly, but I was not allowed to follow my granny down in the basement when she went down there. So my mother had told me that she was an alchemist. All right. So you take that however you take it. And what I had to then realize about bloodline things is that if she was an alchemist, then it explains why my journey has been what it has been, and trying to understand a lot of it when it comes to why are you drawn to things. And one of the things my mother always told me, excuse me, my mother grew up in a strict Baptist background. And so my granny here, she was Baptist also. She was really big church woman. Okay, so she went to church, all right, Baptist church, very serious, but she also was an alchemist. So she had a basement, and I don't know what was down there. But she did things like she had remedies for, whatever would happen. She always had like remedies she would make. And I knew that she was really strict also. She cooked just amazing food, and she baked the most amazing cakes, icing and everything, just amazing. So she was just highly intelligent, but not formally trained. So, this then leads into now my dad, he was diagnosed, if you want to say, as a genius. So then he becomes a chemist, and I've always had an interest in science. And then what happens when you are a curious, like when you're intellectually curious, it can lead you into some challenging places. And that was something that my mother, who wasn't formally, educated, she just did like a couple of semesters in City College. She moved out to LA with my aunt, and she went to like LA City College for maybe 2 semesters and dropped out, and she was homesick and had to come back to Philly. So she didn't finish college. And sometimes people feel like, they have a, kind of feel like people look down on them because they didn't finish college. So I, she basically, my grandmother here, she was Baptist, my mother was Baptist, and then you had other things. So my mother would tell me that my grandmother did things in her basement, and, did things in her basement. All right. I don't know if you had a grandmother that did things in a basement, or I don't know, a she shed, or I don't know. Did you have a grandmother or anyone that had these, kind of another life. So I wasn't like absolutely privy to these things. I just heard about it, and I know that I wasn't allowed in the basement. So back to my mom. She was very careful. She always stayed within the lines. My mother was a virgin when she got married. She was just really good girl. And when you have like a child that, like me, who is again intellectually curious, she knew that she would have to reel me in. And one of the things she always warned me about was delving and dabbling in things, because I wanted to, get books from the library. So growing up in Philadelphia, the library system was just really amazing. And that's what we did. We didn't have this technology now that we have. So when we wanted to Google something, we would Google our butts up to the library. And every neighborhood had libraries where you were just a few blocks away, a few friends or your cousin. You could just walk up to the library and, I would bring home books, and my mother would, she would kind of look them over, but I could read certain books while I was at the library. And I became curious about spiritual things. And she would warn me not to go down certain paths. And she would say things, you're going to open doors, and they are doors that you won't be able to close. They will overwhelm you. And I never understood. I thought she was just trying to keep me in a box, and I rebelled sometimes against that, where I wanted to read. Why couldn't I read about Wicca? I'm a teenager. We spend a lot of time in your room, and you're curious about things. And the way that our culture is, and I could even speak from my generation of growing up with certain programming. I mean, we had a show, what is it, everybody from the Gen X, we had shows with Sid and Marty Krofft. It was like Disney, but something else. Sid and Marty Krofft. And we had a show called what was it called, everybody? The Banana Splits. And we had Witchy Poo. So we had this Witchy Poo, crazy witch. And we had Bewitched, Bewitched. I watched that programming. And it was a lot of witchy things, So what happens is that it starts to act on your mind and your spirit and your being. It's like a lulling, for some of us. We were lulled into certain things. And the witchcraft and the things that dealt with Wicca and other spiritual, systems, they had more of a comedic thing when I was growing up. It wasn't as dark as it is now and overt. It was more subtle. Would you agree? Yeah, puffin stuff. There you are, laughs a lot. So you all know puffin stuff, and we had Witchy Poo, and Witchy Poo was just crazy. You're laughing at her. You're not really scared or anything. And yeah, there you are. Thank you for filling in. Laughs a lot. I Dream of Jeannie. So there you were being lulled, like, wow, I want to be like that, Jeannie. And yeah, so the whole thing began to lull you. So you began to, if you were intellectually curious, you want to study these things, right? And you loved it. I loved I Dream of Jeannie. Yeah. Hey, Darkitect, welcome. I was in the Golden Dawn. It was a good experience. Oh, really? Okay. And let's see, Glenda the Good Witch. There you are. I loved watching The Wizard of Oz. And that's where you get the concept of there is a good witch and a bad witch, witch of the north and west and whatever. But there's Glenda the Good Witch. So that, and I'll get into some things where I was initiated into some practices that I dabbled in. And I want to talk about the issue of dabbling and get your thought on it. I'm just, Endora. That's right, Endora. Endora was funny, and they did it in a funny way. It was, let me stop the screen. It wasn't spooky and dark. So it just had a little kind of campy feel. Everything was campy. Yeah, a little Mary Poppins, flying around. So a lot of magical things, which, is part of childhood to a degree. Hey, Jilly. Jilly says New Age manifestation was the adult version of that delusional thinking. Yes. And I was lulled by the New Age movement, big time. I'll tell you about that. When I was in college, I was being lulled into New Ageism. And if I forget, just remind me to bring that up. What are you saying, Tina? Yes, we think of the pretty good witches. Yes, the pretty good witches. Exactly. So then you start to think that, these other systems are more intellectual and give you more freedom and things like that, or power. Because a lot of times, as when you grow up as a Christian, you feel powerless. And a lot of young people, especially teenage years, that's when the powerlessness is more felt. It can be. So that's why teenagers are lulled into these things. And you can watch a teenager go from a really bright and happy child to a very dark and somber, emo, just amazing transformations that happen in the teenage years. And depression becomes a big challenge. So that's when a lot of teenagers want to experience power. And that's what a lot of them say. That's why they get into the dark arts, you could say, the occult. And when I was a teenager, I was no different. I mean, I may have played around, again, dabbling. I never dabbled with a Ouija board. My mother really scared me enough to not touch the Ouija board. Now, I've seen Ouija boards in friends' homes, but I never did the Ouija board thing. But what I do remember doing with my cousins when we were, I don't know, somewhere spending the night, maybe at my cousin's home or whatever, and they did something called Bloody Mary. Do you remember this whole thing where kids would do this Bloody Mary thing, and they would say you have to say it 3 times and darken the room, and you're supposed to see her in a mirror? So someone did one of these goofy things, and that was something that I was like, okay, I'm not playing around with this kind of stuff. But it's always one child that knows a lot more and can get you into something. And then it seems that it's a seed that's planted. And you then begin to think about these things more. And that's my testimony of the way that I dabbled and how when I look at the trajectory of my spiritual journey, I have been saved. Okay. When I tell you I have been saved in a way that it makes me shudder to think how many traps I avoided that I could have as easily been I can't imagine where I would be with some of the traps and snares along the way. I'm like amazed. And that's the stuff that makes you like, you have to believe that there is a good God, because there's no other explanation. And I'll get into some of the things as I remember. I wrote some notes because I don't know, I just wanted to talk about some of these things because I feel that where we are right now in these end times, a lot of us are unchurched right now. And I never thought I would be unchurched. You know, I always felt that I needed to be a part of church, physical church. And where I am right now with the relationship I have to the corporate church, it's I never thought, I just didn't imagine it would have turned out like it has. It's been really something to behold, I'll just say. Molly, thank you so much. Molly with the super chat, no MSM, just Professor Jen, tip on paper. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the tips and things. That's you don't have to do it, but you do, and I appreciate it all. Thank you so much. Thea said, cult came after me in high school. My father freaked out. I knew better. There you are, cults. That's another thing. I almost got lured into a cult. I had an aunt, one of my aunts, she was a part of a, like in Philly, like some down there near University of Penn around that time, you know, the 70s and stuff. And it was a guru that had captured the hearts of a lot of students. And, you know, if you went to Drexel, Penn, or Temple, it was like this whole thing, you know, because we had the Eastern religion really prevalent in that time. So a lot of people were starting to go to gurus. And I attended actually a few of, you know, her trips to the place where the guru would, I don't think he would be physically there, but they would play his voice like a radio thing, or I don't know, but that was something she did. And then I noticed when I became a little bit older and I was hanging out near Penn, like if I had to walk in West Philly, I almost got caught up in something similar, like an Eastern type of thing with, it really deep stuff in terms of cults, because cults are things that you really have to be, you know, real with yourself. And I don't know what it's like in terms of being in a cult for a long time, like really entrenched, and what it takes to deprogram. But if you all have any good, you know, information or anything, let us know if you know of good sources and stuff like that. Thank God I haven't had that experience where I had gone really deep into a cult. I almost, okay, this is not going to be linear. I can tell it's just going to be all over the place. So bear with me as I remember, but I want to make this point because the issue of cults, there are different cults and different, you know, types and flavors of cults. And you may be someone who was in a cult and has come out. And if you have, you know, if you have a testimony, that's amazing, of coming out of a cult. And I was part of Big Pharma. I told you I worked in Big Pharma for 10 years, actually. And certain people would identify you, and a few of the like people wanted me to climb the corporate ladder, and I wasn't interested, but they would pursue me in a way, like, you know, like invite me to sit on an ad hoc committee. And, if I raise my hand, me, I'm chattery. And if I raise my hand in a meeting and I ask a question and it's like all the people are like, oh, who is she? They're always looking for like a token, black person when you're in corporate America. Like, okay, I'm just gonna be real. Okay. I'm telling you all my experience. They look for a token black person. And in pharmaceuticals, if you have a certain look, they really want to promote you. And so they really wanted to promote me. I had friends in the company and, friends and family. Because when you live in Philly, that's the thing that you're told is like, oh, you got to get a good job with big pharma. So everybody wants to work for Mother Merck, Merck, Sharp and Dome and all this stuff. So if you lived in Philly, New York, and Jersey, they call that Pharmaceutical Alley. So that gives you an idea why I got lured into working for big pharma. Okay. So in terms of like climbing and stuff, I wasn't interested in it. But they want you to, I just wanted to go to work and come home and take care of my daughter. And I didn't care about climbing. So when you're not interested in that stuff, they look down on you, to a degree. Like, why wouldn't you want to climb? Well, I just never had that interest. But these are the things that now when I understand the trajectory, I was spared from a lot. Okay. When I was working in big pharma, I saw how certain people were tapped. Okay. Tapped. And when I say tapped, that's when a mentor finds you. You know that, right? That you are not to find your mentor. This is how this goes in this corporate type of world. You don't look for your own mentor. Your mentor finds you. How do you all feel about that? So when you start to like get tapped for certain things, I watch people get tapped. Okay. I've had good friends get tapped, and they've come from a little town, little townies from Allentown, go from Allentown, never got on an airplane, never, to now you've been tapped and mentored and groomed by an older executive, that they tap you to teach you the ways of this inner sanctum. You learn how to move, how to talk, what things to get into, what zip code you need to have. And they teach you about investing your money. They really give you a crash course in money. Now, I wasn't tapped for that, but I know people that were tapped for that. Okay. So the people that I know that were tapped, one of them, got a yacht, crazy, let me drive their yacht, whatever, like put me at the wheel of their yacht. Okay. And, we were really close before, I would say before I really broke out and started to speak a lot of truth. A lot of people have shied away from me. So I don't know how I am with a lot of people. But I sense that there's a lot of things have cooled down a lot. Okay. But one of the things that one of them that got tapped basically told me is that they are in a club that you are unfireable. Have you ever heard of that? You are unfireable. And that is, listen, these kind of things exist where you will never be fired regardless of anything going on, whatever you did, you are unfireable. They will move you around, but you will always be at that level or higher, and you will move linearly to another corporation. Just move you over, move you back maybe after things cool off, whatever. But you're never going to be fired. You're always going to have your lifestyle. So I know people like that. Now, I have been nimble and avoided being initiated into some of this stuff. And that's why I'm saying I can only point to the goodness of God, that I have slid through traps and snares that would have been for me. That would not have been good for me. And that's the things that when I said I shudder to think of all the ways that I could have been entrapped. But when it comes to spiritual, and again, being warned by my mother, who was very cautious, and she told me about my grandfather who was in the Rosicrucians. I told you all about that, the Rosicrucians. And something about his, whatever he had learned or whatever was presented, he decided that no, I'm denouncing it, I'm out of it. So he did not go as far in it. I don't know the details, but I know that my mother told me that he had the paraphernalia, whatever, the books and things, and he got rid of everything, and he just didn't want to talk about it ever again. So Philadelphia, again, is the city that I'm starting to believe, as I told you, a lot of first of everything first. Philadelphia has a really big Masonic temple on Broad Street, really huge. It's so big that if my brother was here, he could confirm this. From what I'm remembering, that's where Jay-Z actually crossed one of his big initiations into the lodge. And I believe it was a public thing. I mean, it's not like I'm being a conspiracy theorist. You guys can maybe look it up real quick. But I can remember vaguely the news covering it, that Jay-Z had come to Philadelphia and he would be at the, oh, there you are. Am I remembering this correctly? Wasn't it a public thing, public knowledge, that when Jay-Z was being initiated into something, that he had crossed over, as they say, at that Masonic temple, the big Masonic temple in Philly? Am I right? It's true? You all remember? Okay, so we have huge Masonic temple in, yes, okay, there you are. So some of this stuff I'm just going to be talking off the top of my head, okay? Okay, so the guru confirms this. So again, everybody, you can look this up. So that lets you know that Philadelphia it's something in this city, something on the deeper esoteric and occult. And again, Philadelphia and my growing up in Philadelphia, and then you don't know why you're being influenced, but there's a spiritual dominion over each city that is the head of that city. And so Philadelphia has a certain type of, it's a little different, I'll say, when it comes to the spiritual warfare going on in Philadelphia. And so, yeah, it's a Black Masonic temple. So you know that the Black Masons are, what are they called again? They go by a different name. But again, let me go back to my time in the big pharma. I wanted to tell you another thing besides just not being tapped, but I was not interested in so many things. So people backed off because I was just not interested in climbing when I was invited to climb. So one of the things that I did do is that there was a guy who he would recruit us, and this is how they find out what your talents are, how you can be used, right? So this guy said that because we had a certain budget for professional development and you had to spend the money, and it was a lot of money. So when you all think about pharmaceuticals, there is so much money in it. When you work for the pharmaceutical company, especially at the time when, yeah, Prince Hall, thank you, Prince Hall. That's what I wanted to think. Yeah, Prince Hall. So what was I saying? Okay, so when I worked for the pharmaceutical company, it's a lot of money that they bestow on their employees and also their customers. And so you had a big pot of money for your professional development, and you can use it however you want it. It was just really, when I was in there, it was just really free, like a gravy train. Money, money, money everywhere. And I worked for AstraZeneca, by the way, if I didn't tell you that before. So this guy recruited for this one particular professional development, and you all may know it, but it was called, darn it, I'm forgetting. It was one of these things that, like a system you go through. What was it called? Can anybody remember? It was downtown Philly on Broad. They had a big building. Oh, I was going to know this. Hey, the Guri, do you remember when I was caught up in that thing? It was like it was teaching you how to like tap into your power kind of thing. And it started from a system. I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm sorry, y'all. Bear with me. Somebody probably knows what I'm talking about. It was very much in the corporate world, okay? So it started from a system from the 70s called EST. No, Franklin Covey. I did that too, Jilly. So I did do the Franklin Covey. I even had the planner. And when you had the planner, you took a course and you worked with your Franklin Covey. We were really big into There you are. I knew somebody would know. Jilly is coming in with the facts. Thank you. The Landmark Forum. All right. The forum. You know about it. You know about it, Thea. There you are. The forum. So he was recruiting for the forum. And let me tell you, the forum, when I went to this thing, if anybody doesn't know about the forum, the way that it is set up, it's a weekend. And it's like grueling. You have to sign, I don't know, NDAs I don't know. They're kind of NDA-ish, but you have to sign release forms that if you have a nervous breakdown over this weekend, that you can't sue them. But the weekend is like the most intense thing. You are in a room with I don't know how many people, maybe 100 or more people. And you go through a series. They have these facilitators all around, and you stay long hours, and you have these breaks, but it's really intense. And they do these certain exercises. They have you come up on the stage and you give your story. It's really like very mental. And so I completed the first one, the forum. And when I tell you, I met the most amazing people. And that's the thing about like when you're in this sort of like you're getting into these groups, you're being recruited and people are checking you out. I connected with people from even the television industry. You know about QVC? Yeah, the Q. We call it the Q. And I met people that worked in the Q all around like television and movies, and they're not people that you would look at and think they work in the movie industry. They're just right like the technical people, the directors and all these kind of people. You don't know you're in the presence of somebody who's worked on all these shows that you look at on the Discovery Channel. All of that stuff started out of Philadelphia, by the way. It all like that's the birthplace of all those kind of shows that started on the Discovery and all that stuff. That started in Philly. And the people that work on those shows, it's like a skeleton crew of people. They work at the QVC. I've been out there to QVC. I did like a tour and like I met all like I knew all these people, like the people that do like the set design and stuff. And I started connecting so much with the people that I produced with my best friends. We actually produced a treatment for a television show that we were going to sell. And I was going to host it. It was like the Black Martha Stewart. I mean, we kind of like Martha Stewart. I told you about that. It's a long story. We went to the television, it's a big convention for the television and film industry called NATP. And they have it in New Orleans. And we went, me and my best friends, we produced this whole like treatment, this, beautifully shot, like whatever, a reel. And we went down to the convention. We had a whole booth and everything. And Martha Stewart was like, she was lurking. We had a few, sightings like that. Martha Stewart, okay, lurking around. We know about it. Because we made this big splash because we were all tall. They were like, did you go to the booth with all those tall Black women? And, we were new to the whole television thing. But it's a long story. We never got far with our project because we had a spiritual attack within my group. Really, really bad spiritual attack. And that's a long story. I could literally write a book. But we were going to, do a TV show. It would have been like one of those, home shows, whatever. But that was all from me making these connections at the Landmark Forum. And then I was also making connections and back into Cuba, making deep Cuban connections. And that took me on a trip back to Cuba, all out of the Landmark Forum, okay? And the Landmark Forum, you go through one level, and once you graduate, they want you to get into the next level. And I had progressed through, and again, my company, they paid for this. This was professional development. I was even going to like a professional coach. And these are psychologists that work with corporate people. And they work on your mindset and they help you to get your plans and talk about things in your toolbox. And it's psychological. But it's, what I'm saying? But they call it professional coaching. So you're doing couch trips and it's called professional development. But one of these particular levels of the Landmark Forum that I was in, it was like the graduation, kind of the end of this particular session or whatever. and something like went off in me. And I was making friends with the people, we were starting to like make these little connections and networks. And something awoke in my spirit. And I said, I have to get out of here. And I think they wanted me to come up and do some kind of speaking or whatever. It was my turn to do. And I got up there, everybody. Can you imagine? I've gone through like one level, and this is maybe the second or third level. So I was about to become like a whatever, really graduate from this thing. And I got up in front of the whole room and I said, I can't do this anymore. And it was like, the whole room is like, and I said, yeah, I can't do this anymore. I denounced this. And it was like, whoa, what are you talking? I said, something in my spirit wants me to denounce this, and I can't go on with you all. And they were, if you could have heard a pin drop, and they were, Jennifer, they were running. I said, I have to go now, but I am finished here. And I gathered my things, and I was headed to the car. They were running after me, you guys. A couple of them ran after me. Jennifer, what's going on? Can we talk or something? And I was like, I said everything I needed to say. Something in my spirit is telling me I'm not supposed to be a part of this. And they were like, no, this can't be right. They were doing their thing. They can talk to you in a way that you're like, they can get in your head. I was like, listen, I just can't go on. I couldn't explain it anymore to them. And I got in my car and I zoop, zoop, zoop. I got out of there. And I did not look back. Now, they were calling me, and I have to tell you that this is my experience. I don't have to say allegedly or nothing. The certain people were calling me a lot. Like, Jennifer, you need to, think about this. Don't make a, drastic decision. It must be something, whatever. They had a way to explain what I was going through. And if I just, waited it out and don't make a decision right now, I've done all this work. Why would I undo all this work? Don't I want my dreams? And I was like, I want my dreams, but I'm going to have to do them another way. So they pursued me for a bit, but I was not budging. And so I think about just that. I don't know now. Other than God has spared me from a lot. And I want to talk about how, like, in terms of, let's see. Oh, and one of the other big things I didn't think about this. Boy. So, okay, let's go back. I have my little notes here. It's kind of everywhere. Let's see. Penny is saying, listen to the Holy Spirit speaking to you. There you go. Yeah, go with your gut. You have to. Hey, Paint Live Brainwashing Cult. It's similar to Scientology. You can't be that's what Girl Code, you know what, I need to call Girl Code. Girl Code says that certain people, we can't be gotten. It's like we could go pretty far, but it's always going to be something. It's like, nope. Just when they think, it's like meep meep. That's the whole idea. If you ever hear us doing meep meep, that's really that whole thing. Like the, road runner can't, like the coyote just can't get you. Always tries, right? But the road runner, you have some kind of road runner prayer over you, right? So something. Girl Code, you're here. Sissy is here. God is so good. Sissy, right? I'm telling you, God is so good, because when you think about, now I want to tell you all something that when I think about Philadelphia, I'm calling it Black Boule Base Camp. Okay, base camp. Hey, Renee. Renee, you have that in your name. Renee L. Roadrunner. Meet me. I love it. I love it. There you are. I had a prayer. That's it right there. My mother is a big time prayer warrior. You could ask the guru. So my mother's prayers, and then a lot of grandmother's prayers, and we need grandmothers praying again. Where are the praying grandmothers anymore? But what are you saying, Flower Girl? The true chosen are truly covered regardless of how far we stray. Amen. And boy, I mean, that intellectual curiosity will have you straying. Or if you have an appetite for material things. When I think about how I could have gone in a direction of materialism, and I can't imagine where I would be if those things had worked out. So, one of the things, like in Philadelphia, another thing that went on that I found out about is that there's a ring of pedophilia in Philadelphia that I have some friends that were victims of. And one of my friends, he actually killed two of his perpetrators, his abusers. He was groomed and abused from the time he was a child. I told you all about this. I went to school with him, and he was like a kid that he was in my little social circle. I never suspected anything. He was going through such hard traumas, and you would never know it. He knew how to compartmentalize and be a certain child in front of us. Yet he was being abused. And when he got enough of it, by the time we were in high school, he murdered the two men that had abused him. And they had blackmail. One of them like threw up in his face that he had blackmail pictures. And this is a kid, a teenager who he was like a crush for a lot of girls, had crushes on him. He was a football star. And then he has to deal with this stuff in his other life. Well, something just switched off in him, and he did what when I learned everything, because he didn't talk about what he was going through. He was so ashamed. He hid this. And when we found out, when this all came to the light of day, I almost had a nervous breakdown. I could not stop crying. I could not stop crying. I don't know how many days I cried when I learned that a lot of the little boys that I grew up with, they were being taken over to New Jersey to these hotel parties by these men, these Black Boule men, who were supposed to be high-standing people in churches. I won't name their names, but if you're from Philadelphia, you know some of this dirt. They were supposed to be leaders in the churches, teachers. And they took advantage of a lot of the little boys I grew up with. And I look at those men now, and they have shattered lives. Some of them shattered. Those are traumas that are not just felt by them. These things affect your social circle. It's traumatizing. Absolutely. And some of these things, they leave you broken, even though it didn't happen to you. It leaves you broken, and it leaves you vulnerable. So when people do these things, like, I'm always really, I just want to fight and get justice for my childhood friend who sits in a prison for the rest of his life. And these are things that just, they are heavy things. But Philadelphia has a circle. It's a heavy spiritual darkness over the city of Philadelphia. And the Black Boule have been guilty of so many crimes. And God is going to deal with it. That's right. It's PTSD. It really is. A lot of us have PTSD. And it leaves you vulnerable to spiritual attacks if you are not healed, if you can't deal with the things that you have taken, on. And then being a nursing, if you stay in nursing for many years, you're definitely like, the PTSD is off the charts, So I'm trying to understand what it is about Philadelphia and what has happened in that city spiritually. So some of those snares I avoided because I do believe the prayers of the mighty availeth much. And I had some strong prayers over me. Even when 9/11 happened. Even when 9/11 happened. I don't know how you all took that. I was triggered in a way I can't explain. 9/11 shook me. I was headed to work. I'll never forget. I was working for a Latin music organization down in North Philly, in the Spanish area, named AMLA. I was actually a connection through the forum. So not everybody, I didn't fall out with everybody from the forum, but I still had some networks, So I had this job that I was doing, and I was doing contracts for a lot of the Latin groups and things like that. And this was like one of those times where you're like doing other things when you needed a break from whatever. And I was headed to work, and I was listening to the radio. Radio was big, and they start talking about the tower being hit by the plane. And I was like thinking, I didn't think anything. I was thinking a little plane, a little Cessna maybe, but I didn't understand why they broke in with this urban radio to tell us about it. And by the time they broke in and said, the second announcement, I was already in the door and I was letting everybody know, like, we have to turn on the TV. Something's going on in New York. They were like, what? So we turned on the TV and we're watching everything happen. And I was in a panic. I had to go get my daughter on the other side of town. I had to go over to the main line. She went to Episcopal Academy. That's a whole other thing too. When you have your child in these very elite schools. I mean, she's going to school with M. Night Shyamalan's like niece, you know, this is the kind of thing, Episcopal Academy. So I had to fly over to pick her up. That was the first thing. I got to get my child. And so I'm like a bat out of hell, headed over, you know, just driving like just reckless. I was like panicked. And I got her and I'm telling everybody in the school, I'm out of breath. Something's happening. We're being attacked. And, you know, they are looking at me like, you're crazy. They had no idea what was happening. I was like, our country, our nation is under attack. And they're like, what? And I said, I got to go home. I got to go home. And, you know, I left with my child, but I was one of the first parents, I guess, there. And, you know, after that, it was just another ordeal that you think about, like how you got through it, because 9/11 triggered me in a way that I can't even explain. I know everybody has their stories, but I didn't even feel safe on the East Coast. I wanted to move to the West Coast. That's how much it triggered me. But I want to tell you about something that happened. I just remembered, because sometimes you forget things. But because of 9/11, I was like dealing with some things, but I used to do my own lawn work because I had a guy that was doing my lawn work and he became like a stalker. So then I began doing my own lawn work. So I was cutting the hedges and I had an electrical, you know, hedge clipper. And something happened. I don't know how it happened, but right here, you could see this, the hedge clipper caught me. And, you know, I got my hand out real fast, but it was right here. And I thought I could treat my wound, you know, myself, you know, being a nurse, but I was bleeding profusely. Now I lived walking distance to Abington Hospital. Abington Hospital. I live very close to that hospital. But I got in a car, somehow got over there. And as they were, you know, I needed stitches. And it was real weird. I want to tell you something that happened. And I haven't been able to talk about this, but I want to talk about it. So as I was, you know, they were doing x-rays and the whatever, and you know how long it takes if you're ever in the ER, you don't get in and out. So this little lady had come in and, you know, I'll just say she was like, just like, you know, Jewish lady, middle-aged Jewish lady. And she was like real nice, like, hey, how you doing? I'm just coming around to see how everybody's doing. And she offered me, like, if I wanted snacks or something. I think she went and got me some ginger ale and graham crackers, you know, the standard like courtesy. But she was just chatting a little bit. And I was just sitting there and my guard had gone down and I started talking to her. Like she was just asking me things and she was like, so how's it going and whatever. And I was like, boy, I'm really like upset about everything going on. Like in New York, it really has me. I'm really anxious and really sad. And she was like, really? And she was just talking more and more like, you are. And I was like, yeah. I was like, it's something about hearing the word hijacker. It's something about, I keep hearing it because I used to watch the news constantly. And she was like, yeah, really? And so then she went away. She came back and she had like her countenance had changed, everyone. This was at Abington Hospital because I haven't talked about this. She then asked me, she said, "So, Jennifer, did you want to hurt yourself?" And I was like, "No, what do you mean?" And she was like, "Were you trying to hurt yourself?" And I was like, "No." I said, "If I wanted to hurt myself, I'm a nurse. I know how to hurt myself, okay? And it wouldn't be with hedge clippers." And she was like, it became so creepy. Okay. The whole energy had changed. She said, I'm really concerned that I'm wondering if you were trying to hurt yourself because you're upset about what happened up in New York, you're saying. And now I'm thinking that you're not safe with yourself. And I was like, what? Now I had gone to the emergency by myself. And I want to tell you all, if you can always make sure when you are making interfacing with medical facilities that you are never by yourself. You need an advocate. I always tell people this, and this is why. This woman said, "I think you were trying to hurt yourself." And I was like, "No." And then she said, now she was a sociologist, a social worker rather. Then guards came in and they were like, "We're going to have to admit you." And I'm like, "What?" "Because we think you are not safe." And I was like, "What?" And let me tell you, that quickly, I lost all my rights as an American. I can tell you, I feel like that experience happened in another country. They literally strong armed me into a locked unit. They took my phone away. I was like, "No." I was in a room and these two big girls, two big black girls too, from North Philly. I had my cell phone because I was trying to call my mom or somebody. And they were like, "You're going to have to give up your phone." I was like, "No." Now, I'm not a fighter. You look at me and like these girls were some big North Philly Johns, okay? And they had attitudes too, if you know Philly. And I was like, "No, I'm not giving you my phone." They put a maneuver on me, like a wrestling maneuver, and they took my phone, you guys. And when I tell you, this was something that I can't even explain to you. I would not have believed that that could happen to a nurse. I'm a nurse and I'm like, what just happened? I can't call anyone. This was at Abington Hospital. And I'm just going to say that there was a doctor, so I had to kind of play along to try to get out of this situation because I'm like, what? They were like, "We just want to observe you, just 24 hours, whatever. We want to make sure you're safe because you tried to hurt yourself." And I keep telling them, I would not do this to hurt myself with hedge clippers. Are you serious? And I kept asserting, "I'm a nurse. I know how to, come on." And they were like robotic, following orders. No, I didn't take legal action. You know why? I've never been a legal action person. I could have taken legal action plenty of times. You may be somebody like that. My thing was, I never wanted to get drugged down into courts. And it was something that I just, never wanted to do. Now, I thought about it, but I have to explain to you, once I got out of there, my sole thought was to get out of Philadelphia. So taking legal action was like energy that I did not have. I couldn't afford the legal energy to try to fight them when I'm trying to go to the West Coast. So they got away with that one. But there was a doctor in there. And she was like, she had a very witchy poo vibe. And she took a liking to me, and we were like talking and stuff. And I confronted her. And, she was talking about I could be her like private patient. She had like, she saw private patients at her home. And she was like, maybe I don't know, but she was something about her vibe was very witchy poo. And I basically let her know that I wasn't interested in being one of her personal projects or whatever she was up to. So, again, I want to tell you that when I look at the trajectory and I think about the bloodline, whatever is in my bloodline, it's like you can think of generational curses. And these are things that you have to identify and break. And break them the right way. But you have to be truthful and face them. And another thing that I want to say to people that are starting to face some of these things, they're having whatever you want to call it, an awakening, some people call it a dark season of your soul, or whatever it is. Some people may feel like they're breaking down, but this is like a time that mental toughness is needed the most, in spite of anything that you feel like you're losing, because this is a season of great loss. But a lot of women are going to have to get healed from abortion. And I've talked about this. I've lost channels that I've done things about abortion, but I want to talk about this as a testimony. I want to repeat this testimony of mine. Now, I went to a Boule college, an HBCU, Spelman College in Atlanta. Because, when you're from these sort of Boule things, you kind of you go down certain paths. If it wasn't Spelman, it would have been Fisk University. I was definitely going to go to an HBCU. So I picked Spelman, or Spelman picked me. But during my college years, and I had a Morehouse boyfriend, we were like just head over heels for each other. I thought I was going to marry this guy, But I got pregnant, and he convinced me, along with some friends, and I didn't want to do this, but to have an abortion. It's easy, you don't want to ruin your college years. The whole thing, talking you into it. And that abortion was, and it undid me. Okay. It resulted in me running, because I couldn't face what I had done. I went to Europe and I modeled. I lived in Milan, Italy. And when the abortion trauma finally hit me, I had already had I was married, divorced, had my daughter. We were living in Los Angeles. We were going to the big mega church. We're big mega church people. Calvary Chapel, Greg, Laurie. And outside of church, like they would have church session, inside, and then you could sit outside. Beautiful, beautiful church, Greg Laurie has over there. And I would walk by a table that a woman, she had like pamphlets, and it was about abortion, post-abortion trauma and healing. And I had never heard it. Like, I had never heard anybody talk about anything like that. And when I first saw the thing one Sunday, because I didn't approach until it was like a few Sundays that it was in my mind as a seed, when that happens. But I kept walking by, and I one day I got enough nerve to like take a pamphlet and like put it in my purse real fast before anybody saw me. That's how much shame, especially when you get into the church, you're a church lady. You never want to talk about how you were out there doing, you had an abortion, And I looked at the pamphlet, and that was it. Once I read that pamphlet and the words just jumped out at me, the idea that I could face this and other people understood, like this was something that there was healing. There was a therapy that was specialized for this, because this they don't tell you about at the abortion mill. They don't tell you that you're going to suffer psychologically, spiritually. They don't tell you that part. So you're dealing with it. And I know a lot of my little Black Boule friends have been damaged by this aspect of our culture and this toxic femininity, this toxic feminism that tells you can kill your baby and just go to class. Forget about it. No. Natural law will not allow you to murder your baby and be okay with it. Natural law that is written on your heart knows that you have committed murder. Natural law will inform you of this. The people that suppress their conscience and keep suppressing it, this is dangerous. It's not healthy. And that's why we see a lot of mental illness. It is abounding. And we need people to talk about this stuff. We have to come out from hiding, because people need hope, and they need healing, and they need truth for the young women, because there's something about the age 19. You may think that you raised your kids and once they're 19, you don't have to do much. I'll tell you from my research is that the age of 19, there is such a spiritual attack. That's when a lot of abortions happen to 19-year-olds. So just know that there's something about that age, and that those 19-year-olds, they need even more attention and just care. That's not the time to take your hands off. I'll just say that. But these decisions, these abortions, in this culture, they tell you can do anything and you don't have consequences. And that's the biggest lie. You could even see it in popular culture, which I bring up. There is a girl, I don't know, a young woman, I don't know where she comes from, but they celebrated that she has this very toxic relationship. You may know the guy, he's a rapper, I guess. His name is Blueface, and her name is Krishan. And if you've gotten any little inkling of this particular thing about popular culture, this is a relationship that, if you've ever been in a toxic relationship or ever witnessed one, you just add 10 to it. Very toxic and just horrible. And the young woman even had a tooth missing, like she fights out in public, and these guys are just toxic. But the one thing I heard, and my ear picks this stuff up a lot if I hear it. She had 3 abortions. And she was talking about it real cavalier, but she was honest and talked about this. She had the 3 abortions, and she sounds like she has regret, because she said she's currently pregnant, and she was saying that she wants to hear 3 heartbeats. And the reason why is that she wants redemption. She may not know it, but she wants redemption for the 3 babies that she aborted. And sometimes these stories do make it into the mainstream culture. When they do, I just listen, and I wonder how it will affect the young women that will be confronted with these kind of decisions. And I hope they could hear somewhere in between what this young woman is saying, is that even though she lives a life that looks like it's, she's a teetotaler, she's in bars, bar brawls, and with this guy, it looks like, just a chaotic mess. And it's monetized. They do really well. Like it's a big deal in the, in the younger culture. And I would hope that she would find the redemption and the healing that she needs, because I can tell she needs it. For her to even mention that she had 3 abortions and she wants to hear 3 babies' heartbeats now. And that happens to women. They want to redeem by having a baby after an abortion or several abortions. And one of the sad things about that is there's no guarantee that a woman will be able to conceive after abortion, especially multiple abortions. Some women have been left maimed. In actually, back to Philadelphia, talking about the Black Bull and their roots in Philadelphia, one of the most notorious abortionists was out of Philadelphia. And his name was Kermit Gosner. Kermit Gosner. And you talk about a small world. My mother knows part of his family. She knows someone, maybe his mother. I have to check with her. But this man, Black man, will go down in history as one of the worst when it comes to maiming Black women. Horrible. The stories. Like a house of horrors. And all the people that turn their eyes away and let this happen. See, these are curses on a city. When anybody who ever wants to go around Philadelphia and wonder why, I'll tell you, it's because the way we have turned against God. And I'm talking about the Black community of Philadelphia and America at large. The way we have turned our backs on God. If you look at any of our communities, you can see the judgment. And one of them is abortion. Abortion has brought so much darkness and curses. And a lot of people need healing. And that's a testimony that I share of my healing. By the time that seed that was planted from that brochure, and I had fallen ill at work. I worked at Cedars-Sinai. I had fallen ill because guess what? I was suffering the consequences of the abortion physically. They don't tell you that you're going to be more prone to certain things. And I had tumors in my womb and outside of my womb. And I was literally at death's door. They couldn't understand why I was alive. I was bleeding. These tumors were just, they were just taking my life. And I just fell ill. And I do believe this is my testimony. This was a consequence of the abortion that I had at 19. And I was hospitalized, and the grace of God, even in this situation, because I had to be brought to my knees. I had to be brought to a hospital room, facing death, having to have blood transfusions, and a surgery. And the goodness and grace of God is I had a surgeon. He was in Beverly Hills, his office out of Beverly Hills. Imagine me, just a regular schmegular. But I happened to work at Cedars-Sinai, a world-renowned hospital. And I got to have a surgeon who was like, he was amazing. He was a Persian surgeon. That rhymes, a Persian surgeon. He was so gifted. So gifted. The doctors there, even though I know I talk about doctors, but in terms of what I experienced, it was such a level of grace. I had one of my doctors was the doctor of Farrah Fawcett. You know, these are doctors that take care of stars. And then they're your doctor too. So this surgeon, the Persian surgeon, that could be like a show, right? The Persian surgeon. You like that show? The Persian surgeon, let me tell you, he had the ability to take I had over, I think, 11 tumors, different sizes. He was able to carve out these tumors and keep my womb intact. Where a lot of doctors will take the womb of a Negro woman. Black women have the highest rate of hysterectomies, and you can research it. So when they have issues, the quickest thing is take her womb. Take her womb. But this Persian surgeon, he was able to do something that I believe he may be one of maybe the only ones that can do such a thing. So again, like, you think about just the close calls and everything. And, you know, working at Cedars-Sinai, I was working in the behavioral health. And, you know, you're rubbing shoulders with different people. And you're wondering, what are they really up to? You got doctors that do ECT and all that stuff. You have a lot of celebrities that come through. And I'm just thinking, things are coming together. Lots of close calls, lots of things that could have initiated me into things that I would have to, I don't know if I could have gotten out of. And when I had to face the abortion and be truthful with the fact that I was living out the consequences in my health, even, and after coming out of the hospital, that's when I decided to go to Rachel's Vineyard, which is a healing retreat for those that suffer from post-abortion syndrome. And I went to this weekend retreat through Rachel's Vineyard. And I experienced what you would call deliverance and a healing. And it was so powerful that it resulted in me wanting to do a documentary. And I did so much traveling and meeting people and learning about the abortion industry and the pro-life movement. I became very much involved in the pro-life movement. So much so, one more snare that I almost got caught up in is that I was being recruited to get deeply into a certain level of Catholicism. I was being lured to be maybe a token. They need people, when they find out, oh, she can speak and, she's tall. I don't know. It's like, let me just get her into something, speaking or something. And, there's always been that thing that stopped me. I mean, some people, heavy duty people you come in contact with, because I was praying in front of the abortion mills. I was out there praying. And by the way, when you pray in front of abortion mills, their numbers go down. Every time people are outside praying, I just want to give you that as something, food for thought. When you see people, it could be just one or two little old ladies outside of an abortion mill praying, the abortions go down that day. The women decide not to have an abortion those days. And I can tell you that I learned this from an insider who had come out of Planned Parenthood. She was a high executive. You may know her name, Abby Johnson. I got to know these people and be around. I interviewed Abby. But just so you know, that's why when I brought up the other day, the woman in England who was praying in front of the abortion mill and she was locked up and she was saying a prayer to herself when the cop kept saying, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "I'm praying inside my head." And they locked her up. That's so you know the power of prayer. Thank you, Cuba Libre. Amen. The power of prayer. I want you all to know it's powerful. And we need more people praying for these babies, not to be butchered. But I knew people that if I had gotten in trouble, they're like, "Listen, we got you legally. You're good. Nothing will ever happen to you." These are people that can take meetings with the Pope. But you're rubbing shoulders with these kind of people and also being invited, recruited possibly for whatever. I don't know. But I just want to say that there's always been something that I've been nimble and I slide out of whatever. But there's so many times that could have been ensnared in something that I can't explain. I don't know how it would have turned out. But I want to say that if you are in the Los Angeles area, I know that there's a program, No Longer Bound. You can look that up, No Longer Bound. If you want healing from abortion, if you're ready to just get it up and healed, there is an answer and a solution. And I do believe a lot of women are suffering. They're suffering mental health disruption because of the regret of abortion. There's a lot of hurting people, and you don't have to continue down the path of just the guilt and the shame and the things that happen internally. So it's just a lot in terms of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I'll talk about more things, as I think about them. But the main thing that came to me is that we are facing these times of unrest, and mental illness is at an all-time high. And a lot of mental illness, I believe strongly, has to do with what my mother had described, is when you open doorways into your spirit, that you are going to suffer demonic attack, oppression, and it will carry you into depression, because that's what the ultimate goal of the demonic world is: to steal, kill, and destroy. So a lot of people are dealing with demoralization as they're watching this system unravel. And maybe these traumas are going to begin to come up for people. And again, I've been talking to you all. The Girl Code and I we've been talking. We want to be helpers. We want to be healers. We want to be Sherpas to show you. If I can leave some breadcrumbs along the path for you, I will be honest about my downfalls. I don't have anything to hide. Hiding secrets is what got us into a lot of these problems. And people just, if they can be honest about, just take the look, face your consequences. You don't want to plead the fifth. The testimony, just confessing. Some confessions need to be public. I believe personally, I was called to be public with my confession of what abortion did to me. Because through that, I know God will use the testimony, and we overcome the darkness through our testimony and the blood of the Lamb, not loving our lives unto death. Sometimes you have to die in your ego, in your image. Some of the death isn't physical death. It's you have to die to whatever that self, that artificial self, that fake self. And sometimes you have to lay down all of that fake life to tell the truth in power and in love. Because this world system will lie to you. And the lies that it tells about abortion, those lies are deadly. Not just to the baby, but sometimes to the mother. Deadly. and the mental health. You can't continue to lie to yourself. This world has lied to you, and it's now time to just deal in truth. And I want to talk about my HBCU a little bit. I told you all that I didn't pledge a sorority, but I wanted to. I have a lot of sorority people in my family, AKA and Delta. And it was expected that I would become an AKA. And I changed my mind some way, I don't know, over the summer. I decided I wanted to be a Delta. And long story, but I pretty much blew my chances. If I had pledged Delta, I'm going to tell you honestly, I would have been hazed. I would have. I'm not kidding. That was the feeling that I was starting to get, because I had hung around with the AKAs, and I had an older cousin. Everybody knew me to be part of the AKA thing. And I was an alpha sweetheart. They match up with the AKAs, the alphas at Morehouse and Spelman. And I was an alpha sweetheart, which is an auxiliary. I didn't have to take a pledge or anything, but they did a little something, some little rituals we went through with the alphas, okay? And I denounced that. I don't know what it is about me. I get into this denouncing thing, like I did with the forum. Stand up in front of them like, I'm no longer doing this. And they're like, so I did something similar with the alpha sweetheart thing. I've gone through my little thing, and I love the guys. They were cool. They were like my big brothers and everything. Some of us are still friends on Facebook. They're probably like, she's totally crazy. That's okay. But they named me my line name as an alpha sweetheart was Polly Purebred, okay? You know who Polly Purebred is? That was the nickname, because they always give you like a nickname. So that was mine, Polly Purebred. So I started to just get this like thing where I had to get away from it. And I wrote a letter, me and the letter. So I wrote a letter of resignation from the auxiliary alpha sweethearts. And I know they were like, she's crazy. I went to like the guy, I won't mention names, but I went to his like wherever he was, and I slipped my letter under the door, and that was it. So I distanced myself from that. Can you believe that was my name? Polly Purebred. They thought I was like a goody two-shoe. So yes, I was Polly Purebred. So they probably weren't surprised that I denounced it and I quit. But when I decided that I wanted to be a Delta after one summer of I was like, I like them. They're more serious, they go on to law school and whatever. They're just more into their academics, and the AKAs are into being pretty. I was like, I don't want to just be into being pretty. I want to be with the girls that are making the A pluses and they're becoming lawyers and politicians. So I was really impressed with this one girl on campus. Her name was Thomasina. I loved her. She was like real powerful. I was like, I want to be like Thomasina. And the funny thing was, that was going to be one of the names that I was going to be named. Can you imagine Thomasina? So I'm glad I wasn't named. Sorry, Thomasinas. But so I then decided that I would present my whatever interest in the deltas, and it was a girl that she's now famous. Her name is like AJ Johnson. She was like amazing. I looked up to her. She's you would know her from House Party. She was in the movie House Party. You know AJ. So AJ was a like Delta on campus then, and I was like, oh my God, AJ, you know. So I had to present my letter to AJ because she was the person taking the letters. And so I went with another girl who had decided to do the same thing. We both had these harebrained ideas that we were going to now switch our allegiances to the Deltas and show interest. And not a good idea. She was also an alpha sweetheart. So as I put my letter under AJ's door, she opened the door, y'all. She opened the door. I was like horrified, like, oh, and she was like, she had this look on her face, like, can I help you? And I was like, I was like frozen. I was so afraid of her, okay? AJ Johnson is doing some deep things now. Really? Is she? Oh, I hope she's doing well. But I was like, oh, she's so amazing, right? Even then, she was like a celebrity on the campus, even before she became a celebrity. So she took the letter. I think she picked it up and she looked at me. I think she looked at it or something, and she was like, really? It was like, I could feel like she was like, you're the one. I'm just thinking whatever she was thinking, like, you're the one always with the AKAs and you have a cousin, and yeah, where did this sudden interest in Delta come from? You know? So I was like, I don't know. And I scurried away. Me and the other girl, we ran. I was so afraid. But the thing that I know, I'm going to tell you, I believe this so strongly. If I had been allowed to pledge Delta, if they had accepted, let me tell you, allegedly, I believe they would have hazed me till the cows came home. I really do believe I would have been hazed up, okay? Hazing is a real thing that happens, okay? And you can look into it. And at the HBCUs, they do underground pledging. So you can pledge above ground, you can pledge below ground. And when you pledge below ground, a lot happens, okay? So I probably wouldn't have gotten through that very well. And again, something that God protected me from. So sometimes you don't understand why you're making certain moves, but that ruined my chances of pledging. And besides, I ended up dropping out and going and modeling in Milan, Italy. That's a whole other story. But that came from wanting to run away. So I got into modeling. Very dark industry. So I just want to say that a lot of people, I do get that they are being probably confronted with like a conviction that they need to denounce things. Just know, like, denouncing is very powerful. You don't have to do it publicly and make a video like this, but denouncing oaths and things, if you made an oath and you're regretting it. Oh my goodness, everyone. Let's give Shamet some love. Now, I know Shamet from how long, Shamet? It's like almost 8 years, right? We met through like learning about like blogging and stuff, right, Shamet? Isn't that why we know each other? Tell me, like, Shamet, I haven't seen you in a while. Let's give her some love. This is awesome. It's like a reunion, everyone. What are you saying, Shamet? It all has some element of control and your soul is not having it. Yes, that's what it is, Shamet. You are just like of this sort of makeup where you just can't. And I was never like a fighter. You know, again, I grew up until Drew came along. I was like, until 13 years old or whatever, I was an only child. So I didn't get to fight and practice fighting. I was peaceful. I was always doing pottery. I had a little organ. I was playing Beautiful Dreamer on my little organ. I was always, like I told you, booked and busy. I didn't have time for drama and fighting people. Who was I going to fight? Myself? So I wasn't into fighting. What are you saying? The guru? Jaguar Wright has ties to a lot of deep people. Yes. I think about Jaguar, another Philly John, and she's going through a lot right now. And like I said, I was listening earlier to Choke No Joke, and he was just talking about some things, and my heart is just so heavy for Jaguar because I could just hear in the latest thing that she went through. It's like, I don't know if I'm just reading into it, but it's similar to like how if you have regrets, like I'm saying, like some people have been, recruited into different realms. And then you find out like you get betrayed and you realize like you had to give something up that you didn't want to give up. You can't compromise yourself. Like I hear Jag, she says, this is my gift. God gave it to me. And if you've ever heard her sing, this woman's voice is angelic. It is a gift. It is a force to be reckoned with. If you've ever heard Jaguar Wright sing, and she has a family full of singers that in their DNA, they are talented. It's a lot of Philadelphians that have this, like, I don't know, I could never explain it. It's like, is it in the Schuylkill River? Like, what is it? Is it in the water? Because so many people out of Philadelphia have gone on to do things, and they have these talents and abilities, and it makes you wonder, but it has a lot to do with the city of Philadelphia. I want to decode Philadelphia more, but when I was listening to Jaguar say, this is my gift, I felt that really deeply because that is a gift that God has given her. And for anyone to want to control it and monetize it and give her nothing and basically cut her off from the ability to do what she wants independently, that's what we're dealing with. It's like this group of people who want to enslave people in contracts and things. They don't care. It's like no compassion. They would want an artist to just die penniless. These people have no compassion. So when you listen to her, and I truly believe that Jaguar Wright had an assignment in spite of whatever happened to her, where she had to be hospitalized. That doesn't negate anything that she said. It doesn't. If she spoke truth, and she gave her testimonies and things like that, let me tell you, I believe she broke through the Overton window. It may not be what people would agree that she did it in the way, but who am I to say how I believe that this is a divine assignment? Even if it's like people have their opinions, I have mine. I've been watching it and I've been, hoping for the best. And I know she has a talent that is like otherworldly. And what she said about her testimony and her experience, that world needs to be broken up. The world of the music industry and the people, the parasites and the things that happen, it has to stop. So you need somebody who's going to break the Overton window and begin the conversations, because a lot of people, they have oaths. I don't know if she's broken an oath of silence and something expected of her to never talk about things. Of course, they'd want to hide these things, but she's ready to tell truth and to get it out there. Expose it to the light. And those that have been harming people need to come to justice. And sometimes it takes a Jaguar Wright, a Kanye West. I kind of feel like their work is done. They could just sit down now. I think they just needed to throw the rock through the Overton window and just go and do whatever, chill. Kanye got himself another wife. You know, Jaguar's out as far as I can, she's out of the hospital. And I kind of feel like she did something that, and again, sometimes the messenger isn't going to be perfect. And that's what we have to grow up as humans and mature. That we don't expect our messengers to be like, oh, like, you know, this is the church. That's the church thinking. And they got the biggest devils in the church. I'd rather be with a Jaguar Wright than half of these people in this church, in these churches. I'd rather be hanging out with her and people like her that tell the truth, but they're not perfect. And we don't know everything that she's gone through. And that's the thing. A lot of us have traumas, like post-traumatic trauma that needs healing. And this system is so sick. How can you be well adjusted? And especially if you're in the music industry and you're dealing with people like Jay-Z. And if anybody like wants to convince me that Jay-Z is a good guy, like, good luck, because I've looked into Jay-Z enough to know what I see. And if she had anything to do with him, then it's, let me tell you, bad news. But I believe that God's grace, whatever, I don't know, you know, people get involved and they get recruited into things, sororities, and post college, you have the Eastern Stars and all kinds of secretive groups for women. The ultimate thing is this: whatever they've threatened these people with for breaking these oaths, it has to come to a point where it doesn't matter. Because secretive groups, that's the downfall of our society. We were warned about them, JFK and others. But even though they can be, you know, criticized for whatever their personal lives and things, it doesn't take away if they are speaking truth. And that's what we all have to, we have to do our own searching. And we know, our discernment tells us, if we begin to get healed in our consciousness, the law, the natural law being written on our hearts, God will lead us into all truth. But we have to want and desire the truth. And let me tell you, the truth is a sword. And a lot of people, they do not want to be around truth tellers. It is not something they want to deal with. Like, a lot of people don't want to deal with even the talk about abortions. That they don't want to hear about it. But people need to talk about the abortion on the other side, because we only hear one side. So again, that's Josephine scratching, because she does this. Remember, I told you the cattiness of this cat, and she just jumped. I saw her in my periphery. She just jumped. She's so crazy. But anyway, I'm not going to let her destroy my live stream like she did the other day, try to. But anyway, I just want to wrap this up by saying that I can tell you personally that God's grace is sufficient, and you can be delivered from abortion, guilt, and other traumas as well. And I do believe that if anybody has taken an oath that they need to renounce and denounce, I believe absolutely, Deanne, God's grace is sufficient. And God will not leave you nor forsake you. No oath can separate you from God in his love. So don't believe a lie. And again, they can only kill your body. They cannot kill your soul. If you made some kind of blood oath, and some people have made oaths where death is the penalty for, either disclosing their secrets. I mean, these things are serious. It's like the gang. But I just want anyone to know, regardless of an oath, a man-made oath, that I truly believe that your answer is with God, the Creator, who is far above, more powerful than any secret society. And if you confess your sins to him through his son, Jesus Christ, who died and is a perfect sacrifice, and you go to him and get your healing, and you confess it, but you will have to denounce your sorority and fraternity oath. You will have to. You cannot deal with God's kingdom and have made an oath to a Greek demon, because those are all Greek demonic societies. God is not in them. Some of these sororities are making oaths and pledges to Minerva. I said it, the Minerva. They have books. God is not in it. And a lot of people have been fooled. But don't go to your grave with the ego that will not allow you to confess that you were misled. And you need to break that oath. And it can be broken. All the curses and everything can be broken. So it's time. It's time, everybody. This is the time and the season to break these oaths, to denounce, and to repatriate back to the Father. We've all gone astray. We've all been rebellious. And we've been lured. A lot of us have this intellectual curiosity. We've been lured into the occult. I showed you even on the thumbnail. I was into alchemy. Of course, it'd be my natural progression to get into alchemy. I was listening to, I told you, Bobby Hemmett, and I go to lectures with, Brother Panic. Nothing against Brother Panic, but I was really into studying the occult. And I can't do it, everyone, because I was initiated to a degree into Santeria. Through the whole Cuban connection. I was about to get into it more. I was being recruited into Santeria. From the time that I was a teenager, I was being recruited into Santeria. And I did a little dabbling into Santeria. Because once someone plants a seed, it starts to grow. And they tell you there's white witchcraft, there's white magic and black magic. See, back to the whole polarity and They want to get you caught up in it. But again, I slid out of it so I have an aunt that told me that I'm like a cat. I always land on my feet, but I got out of the whole Santeria thing. And these are just things that sometimes follow you because it's part of, again, a generational curse. I had to, be honest with it. Why am I being lured into Santeria? And I've gone to Cuba and someone tricked me into going to a fiesta that turned out to be a Santeria ceremony. I was actually it was a party that turned into a Santeria ceremony in Cuba. And I was tricked into it. Me and my cousin and my daughter. Can you imagine my daughter, my cousins with me? And here we are, and they're dancing around with the chicken, killing the chicken and the drummers and the whole thing. But we were told we were going to a fiesta with a friend, So many snares, many traps along the way. But God has kept me. And I want to give that testimony to you that in spite of a crazy life that I've had, it's been good also. God has been so good. He provides in a way that is so supernatural. Even when I've slipped and ran and I didn't understand why I was being nimble and getting away from things, it was for, of course, the good. And you don't know at the time you're being saved from your own decisions, some of your own crazy decisions you might have made. So that's why we have to keep our children in constant prayer, because I know that the prayers of my grandmothers have kept me. Well, maybe my grandmother, I told you, was an alchemist. I don't know about her, but she was a Baptist too. And that's the thing. A lot of people that go to church, they're like my great grandmother. They're also practicing the occult. They're alchemists or whatever you want to call them down in their basement, but they're going to Baptist church. So we can't serve two masters. We can't. So it's time to make the decision, because the great harvest, we're at that stage. There's going to be the separating of the wheat and the tares. And it's going to be something to behold. But you just want to extend as much as you can right now to people. Whosoever will listen. It's a whosoever type of situation. There's no force here. But those of us, we have to give voice to the truth. We have to come away from our ego and our persona. And sometimes we have to say, yeah, I had an abortion. I regret it. It's not everything they've told you. And someone needs to hear that testimony, because that could be a life saved in many ways. Because post-abortion brings on depression that leads to possibly self-destruction. That is the trajectory. So stay nimble and lean in to the Lord right now. And I will continue to, however I can do these live streams. Right now, my backup channel has been struck for me sharing the interview with the CEO of Pfizer. They told me I was spreading medical misinformation. So they're doing a sweep through channels and, whatever. They do their thing. And that just shows you that was my backup channel. I've already lost my main big channel 2 years ago. So a backup channel that hasn't even cracked 1,000 has already like caught their, I mean, they care so much about a little channel. It shows you that our voice must be proclaimed. We must continue to do this and not stop, regardless if you think you are small, you are not. Your voice is powerful, especially when you are willing to speak truth to power. So if I have to do Facebook live streams until my week of punishment is over on the backup channel, I will keep you posted. So keep up with me if you can on Instagram, because that's where I do all of my little announcements, Instagram and Facebook. I'm Jenny the John on Instagram. On Facebook, I don't know where I am with my friends list. I've probably lost a lot of friends. I know I told you the Black Boule doesn't like me, so they unfriend me left and right. So if you've been sending me a friend request, just know that I get around to, getting but they have a limit on your friends on Facebook. So it's, and if I've missed you in the chatmosphere, please forgive me. I was in a zone. I just wanted to share that. And okay, she must want my attention. Okay, so here you are. All right, don't act like a brat. Okay, so Josephine has her attention. She wanted my attention. And, yeah, I have a black cat. Doesn't mean I'm into witchcraft. Okay, that's not why I chose her. She chose me. But anyway, her third year adoption is coming up in February. Catnip time. Yeah, she needs some catnip. She's chilling. Did you say hi to everybody, Josephine? Say hi. Don't act shady. She looks pissed. She's funny. So, yeah, just know that there is help, there's hope, there are solutions. And me and Girl Code are going to keep having these conversations again, because we want to do some things revolving around healing. So we're looking into a lot of things. We want to share it with our community as we learn these things. And we'll be, sharing as we get closer to some things. And we hope that you'll be able to be a part of it. So just look out for some of those things that'll be coming up. And, we want to keep each other uplifted in prayer and encouraged in these days. And just know that if you're losing, your strength, just pray to have it renewed. You will be renewed and rejuvenated. I have been many times when I feel like, can't do it anymore. Can't play these games with the censorship. Nope. I'm not going to stop. Okay. God keeps renewing. Like I told Girl Code, we were talking about rabbits. This is the year of the rabbit. It's like, I feel like the Energizer bunny. It's like God just keeps giving energy. So just tap in. He will energize you. Okay. Give you some energons, as Salty says. Some energons. So I think I've covered everything I wanted to. Another long live stream. But good. I don't mind long live streams. Okay. It'd be like if we were hanging out. We're not on the time. Are we on the watch? Like we have to, I'm just hanging out with you 1 hour, Jennifer, 30. I talk a lot. Okay. So I had to ramble, but I hope it was somewhat coherent. You could let me know. Dharma. Hey there. I love you all. And thank you if you've sent any super chats and I missed them. Thank you for all of those tips. And I'll hang out with you again soon. Okay. I think that's everything. I had little notes here. I missed a few, but we'll pick up where I've left off. Okay. Tenye, you're here. Love you, sis. You're welcome, everyone. Again, Rachel's Vineyard, I can highly recommend. If you're in LA, look for No Longer Bound. If you want to be delivered from the trauma, the guilt of abortion, doesn't matter how long ago, there is healing for you, and I can recommend them. Okay. So I'll see you soon. Love you all. Take care and have a good one. I'll go eat something now. You know me and eating. I have to remind myself. All right, take care.